The earliest days of Meteor Garden hold a kind of magic that time hasn't dimmed. It was the moment when Dylan Wang and Shen Yue, two names barely known outside of a small circle, collided with destiny in a way neither of them could have predicted. Before the screaming fans, before the flashing lights of international premieres, there were just two young actors stepping onto a set, nervous and unpolished, trying to find their footing in a story that was bigger than either of them. On those first shoots, Dylan wasn't yet the polished heartthrob we know today. He was restless, mischievous, raw talent wrapped in boyish arrogance, much like Dao Ming-sai himself. Shen Yue balanced that energy with her quiet warmth, her way of making everyone around her feel at ease. When they met, there wasn't instant cinematic perfection. There were awkward laughs, missed lines, clumsy gestures. But those imperfect beginnings became the soil where their chemistry grew. There's a story fans love to retell about one of their earliest kissing scenes. Dylan was so nervous he stumbled on his marks again and again, forcing multiple retakes. Shen Yue, instead of getting frustrated, broke the tension by laughing so genuinely that the entire crew relaxed. What was meant to be a serious romantic moment turned into something lighthearted, and yet when the cameras finally captured it, the emotion felt raw, unfiltered, believable. That blend of nervousness and comfort, that was the beginning of their on-screen magic. Another scene that fans dissect endlessly comes from the basketball court sequence. Dylan, tall and athletic, was supposed to show off, while Shen Yue's character Shan Cai was meant to roll her eyes in exasperation. Behind the curtain, though, Dylan kept missing shots, and Shen Yue couldn't stop laughing. At one point, she even playfully teased him, saying he was more Dao Ming silly than Dao Ming-sai. The cameras weren't rolling, but someone snapped a behind-the-scenes shot of Dylan pretending to pout while Shen Yue doubled over with laughter. That single candid photo became one of the most shared images of their early partnership, proof that even in their bloopers, the spark was undeniable. Then there were the night shoots, when exhaustion blurred into camaraderie. Shooting long hours in chilly weather, Shen Yue would wrap herself in oversized jackets while Dylan tried to keep spirits high by cracking jokes or dancing in between takes. In one clip that surfaced later, Shen Yue is seen yawning, leaning against a prop wall, while Dylan quietly draped his own jacket over her shoulders without a word. It was a fleeting gesture, easily missed, but fans caught it and it became another piece of the puzzle, another untold moment replayed in the minds of millions. What fascinated fans most was how their off-screen energy seemed to bleed into the drama itself. Shen Yue wasn't just acting flustered when Dylan leaned in too close, she was genuinely reacting to his unpredictable nature. Dylan wasn't just playing protective when he shielded her in crowded scenes, he was instinctively stepping into that role off-camera as well. The boundary between character and actor blurred so seamlessly that audiences couldn't tell where Dao Ming-sai ended and Dylan began, where Shan Cai stopped and Shen Yue continued. That blur created the illusion, or maybe the reality, that something deeper was happening. Even the interviews from those days carry moments fans still analyze. There was one particular press event where Dylan was asked who made him laugh most on set. Without hesitation, he glanced at Shen Yue, his lips curling into that mischievous half-smile, while she blushed and looked down at her hands. Another time, Shen Yue admitted she had never met someone quite as unpredictable as Dylan, calling him both annoying and charming in the same breath. To fans, these weren't just promotional lines. They were confessions hidden in plain sight. Perhaps the most iconic Untold scene comes from a blooper reel that surfaced years later. Dylan was meant to storm off in anger, but instead he tripped over a prop. Shen Yue burst into uncontrollable laughter, clutching her stomach as Dylan dramatically played along, pretending he was injured. Instead of cutting, the director let the camera roll, capturing a pure, unscripted moment of two young actors forgetting the weight of their roles and simply enjoying each other's company. That laughter, raw and contagious, still echoes across fan edits to this day. What makes all these early moments so powerful is the innocence they carry. Neither Dylan nor Shen Yue had been fully sculpted by fame yet. They weren't carefully curated celebrities with polished images. They were just two young people thrown together in a whirlwind, trying to make the best of it, and in the process creating something unforgettable. Fans could feel that authenticity, and it became the foundation of a fandom that refuses to let go, even years later. Looking back now, those first weeks on set weren't just about filming a drama. They were about building a bond, playful, awkward, tender, that spilled into every frame. Every missed line, every shared laugh, every protective gesture behind the curtain became part of the legend. And that's why fans still return to those early clips, still edit those moments into endless compilations, still believe that maybe, just maybe, what they saw wasn't entirely scripted. Because in those untold scenes, there was something more than acting. There was discovery, vulnerability, and a connection that felt bigger than fiction. And that connection, captured in shaky behind-the-scenes footage and grainy fan cams, is why Dylan Wang and Shen Yu's earliest days together remain a story fans can't stop telling.
The earliest chapters of Dylan Wang and Shen Yu's journey will always feel like a secret diary written in stolen glances and unfinished sentences. When filming began, neither of them could have known how those long hours under the studio lights would ripple into years of fan devotion. Yet, if you look closely at those behind-the-scenes days, the proof of their undeniable spark is scattered everywhere, waiting to be pieced together. One moment often whispered about happened during a cafeteria break on set. The cast had been shooting all day, exhaustion thick in the air. Dylan, always restless, was joking loudly with the crew when Shen Yue walked in holding a tray of food. He suddenly quieted, smirk tugging at his lips, and offered her his seat. It wasn't scripted, it wasn't promotional, it was instinctive. She laughed, shaking her head, but fans who later saw a blurry leaked clip of that exchange swore there was something different in the way he looked at her, something softer than his usual playful bravado. That single act of chivalry became another golden thread in the fabric of their story. There's also the famous umbrella scene. During one night shoot, the rain machine malfunctioned and poured harder than expected, drenching the actors. While crew members scrambled to fix it, Dylan grabbed an umbrella and held it over Shen Yue, ignoring the fact that he was soaking wet himself. Cameras weren't rolling, but someone caught the moment in a photo. In the picture, Shen Yue is laughing under the umbrella, Dylan's hair plastered to his forehead, and for fans, it felt less like two actors on a set and more like two people sharing an unguarded moment of closeness. That image traveled across forums, edited into fan collages, immortalized as the real meteor shower. Another behind-the-scenes gem lives in the memory of the library scene. Shen Yue was supposed to deliver a serious monologue while Dylan listened intently. But Dylan, unable to resist, began crossing his eyes and making silly faces when the camera wasn't directly on him. Shen Yue fought to keep her composure, her lips twitching, eyes betraying a glimmer of laughter. Finally, she broke, giggling uncontrollably, and the director had to call cut. It wasn't frustration that followed, though, it was warmth. Dylan sheepishly apologized, Shen Yue playfully smacked his arm, and the crew erupted in laughter. That chaos, that easy comfort, was what fans later pointed to as evidence of a bond that went deeper than scripted lines. Fans also remember the way Dylan often slipped out of character once the director yelled cut. In one rehearsal for a confrontation scene, he was meant to tower over Shen Yue with anger. The cameras stopped, but Dylan lingered a moment, his scowl melting into a grin. He whispered something to Shen Yue that made her cover her mouth in shock, eyes widening before she burst out laughing. That brief, unscripted exchange never made it to the final cut, but those who saw the behind-the-scenes clips still wonder, what exactly did he say to her? It's the mystery that keeps the moment alive years later. Then came the accidental touches, the tiny, almost imperceptible things that fans love to freeze frame and analyze. A hand brushing against hers when they walked between takes. The way Dylan leaned just a little too close when giving her notes. The way Shen Yue's gaze lingered a heartbeat longer than necessary after a scene ended. To outsiders, these were just coincidences. But to fans, they were signals, breadcrumbs of something more, and every frame became evidence to be dissected. Even the press tours after those early shoots carried unforgettable moments. During one fan meet, Dylan was asked who among the cast made him laugh the most. Without missing a beat, he pointed to Shen Yue, grinning as if the answer was obvious. Shen Yue, flustered, waved her hands and tried to deflect, but the blush creeping across her cheeks told its own story. Another interview had Shen Yue describing Dylan as like a storm, unpredictable, sometimes overwhelming, but never boring. Fans held onto that phrase, quoting it endlessly, because it felt less like a co-star description and more like a confession disguised as an answer. What strikes fans most about these early days is the rawness of it all. Dylan wasn't yet a seasoned celebrity. He tripped, stumbled, cracked jokes too often. Shen Yue wasn't yet the polished actress walking luxury carpets. She giggled too easily, blushed too visibly. Together, they created moments that felt almost stolen, not manufactured, not scripted, but genuine slips of reality peeking through the fiction. And it wasn't only fans who noticed. Crew members often described the two as inseparable between takes. Shen Yue would lean against a chair while Dylan paced the floor, and somehow, their rhythms synced. He teased her relentlessly, but he also defended her when interviews grew too invasive. She laughed at his antics, but she also steadied him when nerves threatened to get the better of him. That balance, fire and earth, chaos and calm, is what made their partnership magnetic. The magic of those early days lies in their imperfection. The missed lines that turned into laughter. The bloopers that became fan treasures. The way they navigated unfamiliar fame side by side, without yet knowing the weight of what they were building. Fans still return to those clips not just for nostalgia, but because they capture something rare in entertainment: authenticity. The sense that for a little while, two rising stars weren't acting at all, they were just being, together, behind the curtain. Years later, those moments still feel alive, replayed endlessly in fan edits, whispered about in comment sections, cherished in hearts that refuse to let go. Because what Dylan Wang and Shen Yue gave us in those early days wasn't just a drama. It was the feeling that we were watching a story unfold twice, once on screen, and once in the quiet, untold spaces between acts.